So when I was 14, I was in awe of Richard Harris. Now, Richard Harris was a Crystal Palace under-21 footballer who could throw the ball all the way from the sideline to the penalty spot. So every time we got in a throw-in, it was like getting a corner. It was amazing. And one day, my friend Karen, who was not the best influence in my life, asked me if I'd like to go down to Bromley Shopping Centre in southeast London because some Crystal Palace footballers were going to be there. Maybe there's a chance we'd see Richard Harris. So off we went, got the bus to Bromley, rolled up to where they were doing the demos. Sure enough, there he was, towering above the other players. Long throw. Oh, so amazing. So we chatted to them and we got to know them a bit. We went off, did some shopping, came back and chatted some more. And at the very end of the day, Richard said, well, why don't we give you a lift home? You can come with me, Ruth, and Karen can go with Lee. So Karen and I looked at each other like, yes, absolutely, we would love a lift home. So, picture this. Open top car, wind in my hair, music is blaring, Richard Harris next to me, and I'm looking at him like, he's amazing, and he's looking at me like, I just made this girl's day. So we get back to my house, I get out the car, wave goodbye, roll up to the front door, and I'm like, Mum, Dad, you never just guess what's happened. You know Richard Harris, the guy that can throw the ball from the sideline? He just drove me home. We met at the shopping centre, they were doing demos, and he gave me a lift. How amazing is that? And my parents looked at me, and they looked at each other. And they looked at me, aghast. What do you mean you got a car with a 19-year-old guy? You're only 14 years old. And slowly I watched the day crumble around me, and I realised what I'd done. The point is that the way someone looks at you has a really big impact. Now onto the workplace. One time I worked for this one company, and I really wanted to work for this one woman. I admired the way she handled herself, and I think I really wanted to be like her. So I asked and I said, can I work for her? And eventually my wish was granted, and I tell you, I was so excited about this. I was going to be her number 2, and we were going to conquer the world together. So, this was going well at first, but then slowly but surely, I noticed that my confidence was eroding. I started feeling anxious, stressed, and eventually I started fearing going into work. And then I realised it wasn't what she was saying to me, but it was the way she looked at me. She looked at me like I couldn't really do it, and I wasn't really good enough. So this got worse. So sleep got worse, anxiety got worse, so much so that I left that job without doing my notice period, something I never thought I'd do. So the point is that the way someone looks at you can have a really big impact about how you feel about yourself. And if we were to pan out and ask, well, why are people leaving companies? We can take it from different perspectives. And from a leader's perspective, I often hear, well, they didn't really fit in around here, it just didn't work out. And from an employee's perspective, it's often, well, I didn't really know where I was going. They weren't looking after my development, so I left. And from a societal or media perspective, it's more about, well, people are moving on for a different lifestyle, for example. That's what it is. But I think the core reason is none of those reasons. There was a Gallup study done that said that 75% of people left their job not because of the position itself, but because of their manager. Now, I found well-being and retention at work is handled in completely the wrong way. It's often one-off shots in the arm, like a yoga session, or maybe it's an employee assistance program where you can speak to a faceless individual. But I don't think people stay at work for those reasons. I think they stay at work because of their relationships and because it feels good at work. Now, arguably, the person with whom we have the closest relationship is our manager. So if we were to boil this down, well-being and retention at work is about how your manager treats you. So what does this mean for leaders? Well, from my research, it's about how we are with people. It's about how we look at them. Now stay with me, because this is backed by neuroscience. So we know that we have mirror neurons in our mind and body that mirror the conscious and unconscious thoughts and feelings of other people. So if you're angry or you're stressed, or you don't like someone very much, they know. You don't even have to say anything. We feel it in our neurology. So we feel doubt, we feel judgment, and we feel being written off. So can we tolerate this? Can we stay here? Would I say no, absolutely not. At worst, this is wrecking people's mental health, as that woman did with me. And at best, it's low confidence, it's underperformance, or it's high turnover, as companies really struggle to maintain stability. Now, I think leaders do care about people. I really think they do. But I think often it's from a position of power and authority. So it still has some really traditional leadership aspects about it. Now, I've been working with leaders as a coach for the last 7 years, but I've also been interviewing them for the last 3 years for the Conscious Leaders podcast, and I've digested that work into a book. Now, for this podcast, I find the best people leaders, and I hack into their brain about what's working, what's gone wrong, and how people can really learn from their philosophy and practice. And in those 7 years of working with leaders and 3 years of interviewing, as well as digesting it into a book, this is where I've landed. This is about how we are with people. It's about showing up for them in a way that allows the power and authority to really shift to the other person. So how do we do that? How do we show up for people in a way that allows them to feel empowered? How do we show up for people in a way that allows them to thrive? Well, there are many ways, but today I've got 3 ways that you can tap into this leadership superpower. Number 1, manage your mood. People will know when you're angry, when you're stressed, so look after yourself as best you can. Could be meditation, could be good nutrition, could be exercise. Whatever it is, do it. Because if you're looking after yourself, you're also looking after them. Number 2, develop a clear, positive intention for the people that work for you. Now, that clear, positive intention is not clouded or jaded by past behavior, but it brings a fresh perspective to the capacity of someone else. So let me give you an example. I interviewed someone from one of the top 4 consulting firms, who I think is a conscious leader, and he had one of his senior managers behaving badly. So much so that her team were coming to him and saying that she was being nasty and obstructive. So he sat her down and said, "Hey, what's going on? Your team are coming to me and saying you're being nasty and obstructive, but I know this isn't like you. I'm really wondering, are you okay?" So in that moment of giving her some really direct feedback, he also was checking in on her well-being, checking in what else was going on in her life. So the first is manage your mood. The second is develop a clear, positive intention. And the third is listen deeply. People will know whether you're listening or not, so be present as best you can. And that's exactly what that corporate leader did after that. He listened. And in that space of listening, she opened up about a whole load of stuff that was going on personally. Overnight, her behavior changed. Now, I really want you to feel this for yourself. So I'm going to do a mini exercise with you. And I'd like you to bring to mind 2 contrasting figures. Now, the first person I'd like you to bring to mind is someone who perhaps they look at you a bit doubtful, judgmental, perhaps they don't look after themselves too well, maybe a bit stressed, or maybe they don't really listen. So pick someone and just close your eyes and bring an image of them before you. Now, you might have a few appear, so just select someone and just bring them into your mind's eye and just notice what it's like to be in their presence. So just scan your body for any thoughts, feelings, and body sensations. Just notice what it's like to be with them. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. You can shake that person off. Now, the next person I'd like you to bring to mind is someone who looks at you like you're amazing. Because you are, by the way. So this person has so much faith in you. They're not too stressed. Perhaps they listen well. And do the same thing again. So bring an image of them into your mind's eye and just close your eyes when you're ready. And just notice what it's like to bathe in their gaze for a few moments. So just scan your body for any thoughts, feelings, and body sensations. Just notice what it's like to be with them. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Now, you'll have this contrasting impact on people in your day-to-day. And the person who had the biggest positive impact on me in this way was my first coach, Rachel. Now, I went to Rachel when I was in a pretty bad state. I was anxious, I was depressed, I was on anti-anxiety tablets and sleeping tablets. I'd just come off the back of that awful experience with that leader, and I really was in a mess. I was at a pretty low point in my life. Now, when I sat down in front of Rachel looked at me like I was amazing, which I have to say is not the way most people were looking at me at the time. A lot of my friends, family, they cared about me, but they were like, oh, you're not sleeping, you lost your job, we're kind of worried about you. And I felt their worry. Rachel, in contrast, looked at me like I was incredible. I had all these resources, I just had a really tough time. And in that moment, something shifted, and I started to tap into the capacity I had in myself again. I started to feel it. And maybe today, you've looked at someone like they're amazing, and they would have felt it. Or maybe today, you've looked at them a bit doubtful, or judgmental, or you weren't really listening. They would have felt that too. So my call to action to you is to get out of your heads about the narratives you have about people. Could be people in your teams, could even be friends or family, and check yourself. And tomorrow, do a short self-audit and practice one or all three ways that I mentioned about tapping into that leadership superpower that you all have. So the first, manage your mood. So how's my well-being? Can I look after myself in any way? Because I know that if I look after myself, I'm also looking after them. 2, can I develop a clear, positive intention for someone that works for me? Perhaps someone who's a bit difficult. Can I look at them like they're amazing? Because they'll feel it and it will be really powerful. And 3, can I listen deeply? Because they will feel my presence. And I'm not saying this is easy, but it is simple. You need to decide from those 2 contrasting figures you brought to mind earlier, who do you want to be? It's a radical act of self-development, but the benefits are limitless. It's connection at work, it's happiness, it's enjoyment, fulfillment. And the biggest thing is the ripple effect, because good vibes are infectious, and this leadership superpower will spread and spread. So I invite you. There is nothing more simple or radical you can do to change someone's day. Change the way you look at someone, and you can change the way they feel about themselves. Thank you for listening.